Riot police in Belgium have used water cannons to disperse a right-wing demonstration at the memorial site in the Belgian capital, Brussels. Police intervened after thousands of right-wing protesters gathered at the Place de la Bourse Square in central Brussels, despite a peace march being already cancelled due to security reasons. Protesters chanted anti-immigrant slogans. There have been reports of counter-protests in the area as well. About 10 people have been arrested. On Saturday, Belgian officials called off an Easter rally. They also called on organizers to postpone the planned March Against Fear that was due to be held on Sunday from the central Place de la Bourse. They said the mass gathering would draw away police and much-needed resources from raids underway to detain the Brussels bombing suspects and the ongoing investigation. The Belgian government is coming under mounting criticism over its handling of the situation. Now joining us to talk more about this from Washington is Abby Jollis, international human rights litigator. Ms. Jollis, it's good to have you with us here on Top 5 tonight. Now, essentially, in most talks about the refugee crisis being currently covered in the mass media, mention is being made of the economic, political, let's say, ramifications and consequences. But oftentimes, the case is a cultural one, is it not? Fundamentally seen, it is a cultural issue. Now, what is your take, that is, cultural take on the phenomenon?
I'm sorry, which phenomenon?
The migration of refugees. The migration of refugees. It is usually being seen as in the demographic, that is, sense of the matter, and the economic impacts that it might have on the European community and the political ramifications. But many often believe that there is also a very curious cultural aspect to it. Do you agree with that?
Well, I think that these people are running from war. They're under threat, and it's very important that they be permitted to enter into Europe. They really don't have a choice. So I suppose you could look at it that way, that other cultures will come with them. But these are normal people, for the most part, who are victims and have had to leave their homes. And so it's very important that they be welcomed into Europe with open arms. It's very sad that there are demonstrations. You know, today by the right wing, you were just speaking about them. That's a very sad commentary, because these people are simply trying to get away from their victims themselves.
Now, speaking of being victims, ma'am, now essentially the crises that these victims are facing, and it's the reason why they're leaving their homes, is partly being, let's say, impinged on and let's say contributed by from Western countries. The Western countries are partly to blame for what's going on in Syria, for instance, and indeed in Afghanistan from many years ago. Now, why is it that when these people are leaving their homes because they just have to, there's a war over there, they're not that treated fairly over there in Europe, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's the way that you see when there are a finite amount of resources, or people view it that way, that there are a finite amount of resources, they simply do not want to share. And so that's really the reason, but it all goes back to education. And if we could educate them, or begin to educate them, they need to, everybody needs to learn how to speak their languages, and we need, that's the cultural part that you were speaking about. So it's very, very important, this issue of education.
And by education, you're referring to the refugees
selfish.
being educated, or the local people? The Europeans?
No, actually, I'm referring to the Europeans, that it's very important for them to understand the cultures that are coming there, and to understand why the people are coming, and to understand that they are victims, that they didn't want to leave their homes. And travel to Europe with their little babies and their old people. They were forced to do that, otherwise they were going to die.
And
so it's important to explain this.
Do you think the European nations are on the right path to achieve that end? That understanding that you were mentioning right now?
I'm sorry, do I think
the European countries are on the right path for
path?
understanding the situation properly, as you were saying?
Well, I think they're certainly not on the right path when they're demonstrating against these poor people. That's not the right path. But I think that we can persuade them that it is the right path as these people come in. I mean, I've seen many interviews with individual refugees themselves, and they're just wonderful people. So I think that it's important to educate the Europeans about this.
Thanks a lot, Abby Jollis, for your thoughts here.